really like understanding a reptilian possession. The reptilian consciousness has created an anti-human structure on this planet that benefits a very small and quote-unquote privileged few. The reptilians believe in hierarchy. And again, our role as humanity, as divine Christed God beings, is to bring unity consciousness into physical reality, into physical embodiment. And that is what our genetic material is designed to do. It's what our core blueprint is designed to do. And this is why this information has been taken or withheld from general knowledge. And this, again, is something that belongs to the human race and needs to return to the human race. So again, our inner sustainability, what integrated ascension is to understand to become inner sustained, you now are not parasitizing anything on the outside. So the ultimate energetic sustainability within your core God being is to be fully connected and inner directed and therefore inner sustained. So divine will and divine source is the ultimate intelligence. So choose divine will over personal will and you will observe magic start to happen around you. This is as simple as it is this is how you become a part of the guardianship of the divine plan of humanity. We are here again to be the embodiment of divine purpose. And as we again align to divine will, it's a natural organic process of our race, of our species, of our planet. So again, how do we get there? This is one particular model they've provided us, and this is understanding the levels of intelligence. So again, we're going to use the chakras as a basis of understanding this model. And this is again understanding the first level of intelligence, the first triad, our personality, is considered a third dimensional intelligence, and this is where the mind control exists. This is why the Guardians are saying we've got 24 months to get our station of identity and focus out of the third dimensional level of intelligence. Now, most all of us in this room are multidimensional. But again, understanding the pitfalls of how that consciousness, that intelligence of 3D, how it works, is very important in terms of empowering you to transcend it. Because I think a lot of us get into that self-deprecating mode of what's wrong with me? Why can't I kick this addiction? Or why am I acting this way? You know, again, once we understand that mind control is at use on this planet, once we understand our connection to the larger consciousness fields, we start to become more empowered within ourselves. And that's really what this is designed to do. So the first three chakras is the third dimensional level of intelligence. And again, it comprises the first triad of our consciousness. So understanding our root chakra, or the first layer, is like our hard drive. So again, understand that every chakra is a part of our light body. Everybody's got one. And there is a level of intelligence and energy field that exists there. And it's yours. Again, I repeat, it belongs to you. Layer one is your hard drive. And again, what that means is everything you've experienced as a spiritual being in physical matter is actually in your root chakra. So again, a lot of us sometimes have traumas when we're working through healing our first chakra issues, our issues with survival, invasion, because again, we don't feel safe and we don't know why. Why don't we feel safe? Where is that coming from? Where is that fear coming from? So again, understanding that that first level chakra system is our hard drive. It records everything. So that means it's in your cellular form. It's in the genetic makeup of your being. The second layer is your instinctual desire. Second chakra is actually an intelligence field that was designed for instinctual desire. Now, the issue that the Guardians have been working on in reconfiguring the collective emotional field comprises the issues with our second chakra. From their perspective, our second chakra is very damaged because, again, it was never meant to be an emotional synthesizer for, again, love and emotion and connection and relating. What happened is as people become disconnected from their soul at the heart level and they dropped into the three dimensions of intelligence, the second chakra became an emotional synthesizer by default. So according to the Guardians, that's damage. It means we're not connecting to the higher emotional center of our heart because most of humanity is still operating on codependence, attachment, the pain, addiction, etc. And this is coming from second chakra. And guess who capitalizes on that? Because the second chakra, when left unchecked, creates addiction. And addiction is a big problem in our society. It's a big problem on our planet. Whether it's addiction to food, sex, alcohol, some kind of influential substance, a person. This is coming from an imbalanced emotional body, from the second chakra distortion that resulted as the disconnection from humanity happened 5,500 years ago. Now again, when we understand this, a lot of the times, just from that holding of the space, we can heal and transcend these patterns. So again, as we move into the layer 3 of our solar plexus, this is our conscious mind matrix. So here in our solar plexus is the will center. And this is where, when people are very ego-driven, I want this, I want that, gimme, gimme, gimme. This is coming from the third chakra. And so when we're in a third dimensional level of intelligence, again, there's nothing wrong. Every intelligence is a part of our integrated being. But what's happened is we've been ignoring the higher intelligences and higher spiritual centers and bodies and only focused down here. So we've become very imbalanced in the process of doing that. And of course, the reptilians are using the 3D levels of which to control us so that we don't have the information of how to come into the higher intelligences. So this solar plexus also holds your birth soul influences. Things like your archetypes and patterns that you actually created as a consciousness when you came into this physical embodiment. So things like your astrology, your numerology, these patterns, no accident. I'm sorry to say, your parents, your family, no accident. You chose these particular families of which to incarnate into for a whole array of reasons. Some of this is genetic path cutting, clearing the ancestral dysfunctions. I'm sure many of us in this room that are really evolutionary path cutters have been a part of that, being ostracized or dealing with family belief systems that are very different from your own. This is because we're here to change the pattern. We're here to actually move that genetic material coming from that ancestors, because again, most of them have inherited, there's a saying, the sins of the father is inherited by the sons. Until we learn we don't have to take it, right? We can actually transcend that. So once we become aware of those patterns, we then have that informed awareness where we can transcend those patterns. We can then own that. Is this coming from the voice of my father or my mother or society or my educational program? Or is this really my core truth, my core resonance, that which really feels in alignment to who I am? So again, this is the level of intelligence that's called 3D. It's the first triad, it's the personality triad, and this is where most of humanity is on the planet today. And this is why, of course, everyone in this room is here seeking, higher levels of information to expand that consciousness awareness, because we're here to do this now. So also, it's interesting to know that the first triad, the first 3 chakras, process material elemental forces of physical matter only. So that means that if a being persists in believing it's only this, it starts to disconnect itself from its own soul matrix. And this is what the reptilian agenda is. They want us to disconnect from our soul matrix and become literal automatons. And that's who we become when we only focus down here. This is why this information is not given. This is why I've been through hell and back to bring this information to you, because they don't want this out there. So again, as each one of us holds this truth, as we come into the finality and completion of these cycles, this information cannot be hidden anymore, because it belongs to the human race. So again, more and more of us are coming out and are able to speak this truth and to share this information. Now, the second triad of intelligence as well, when we start to have awakening, this is called the soul matrix. So when we connect to the soul, it's a level of intelligence that from the Guardian model is actually the heart, the throat, and the third eye. So these 3 levels of intelligence together create a formed soul matrix, or the soul matrix triad. Now, a lot of what the agendas in the New Age have been doing is they want to keep you in the fourth dimensional astral and not in the higher intelligence bodies, because that keeps you kind of cycling within the bliss of the heart. When you start to have awakening in the beginning stages of enlightenment, in the beginning stages of your consciousness evolution or ascension, the first level is you're just in love with everybody because you're feeling this whole new level of force from the heart, because we've been cut off, right? We've been using our second chakra for emotion. All of a sudden we start feeling, wow, love is a force. I don't have to create it. I don't have to deserve it. It just is. What a concept. And we start to experience this in our reality. Now, this is all beautiful, but what happens within the New Age is a lot of the times if we cycle in that bliss, we become inert. And this is a part as well of sort of the reptilian agenda. Because if you're inert like Buddha under the Bodhi tree, sleeping, meditating for 20 years, you're really not going to implement the paradigm shifting. So again, understand it's all about balance. It's all about balance. Be in your joy, be in your pleasure, be in your connection with love. But also understand that as well, this can also become an imbalance in your life, where you become inert or lethargic or complacent. Because what's happening to our planet is very real. So again, the fourth layer is our heart center. It's the actualization of our soul, and it begins the experience of emotional, energetic intelligence. When we come into our fifth dimensional body, this is when we start actually experiencing not my will, but God's will, because actually the function of the intelligence of this center is actually you start to connect to a concept and an understanding of group. Gee, if I do this, I'm impacting a group. And you start to actually feel and sense this as a part of your reality. So you can see that as you're expanding consciousness, you can see there's a roadmap. There's nothing on accident. You can actually apply these patterns and see them happening, because your spirit will actually be vibrating with these particular experiences and lessons, and you will call in these particular people or circumstances to actually experiment and try this out in the realm of physicality. So when you're in your fifth dimensional initiation and you're working with fifth dimensional intelligence, all of a sudden you'll be pitted with, gosh, I don't think I can do this 3D job anymore. I don't know if I can stay in this relationship any longer. You start to doubt. You start to go, wow, something doesn't feel right in my life. I'm going to have to make a change. And this, again, is when that bravery comes in, because, again, sometimes it's very hard to let go of familiar realities or certain people we have loved in the past, but to truly understand the wisdom is that when you set each other free, many times you are both being set into the most empowered path. It's the highest expression for both of you. So again, sometimes we have to make some hard decisions at those junctures in our life, but understanding that there's no accident, you're not being punished. This is really about empowering you and moving out anything that's imbalanced, anything that's been creating an illusion or of some kind of security in your life. This money, this bank account, this house, this husband is going to save me. This, of course, is false. The highest relationship you can have, of course, is with yourself and with your God source. And when you put something before that connection on the spiritual path, many times you will see that thing, whatever it may be, is extracted from you. And you go, God, how could you do this to me? But it's because really, in the benevolence of learning and expansion, the goodness and abundance and the greatness of what is truly waiting for you is trying to come in. So the source is just moving away the debris, but sometimes it feels like we're in a loss or a grieving. So again, understanding that this is a part of the awakening process, and to trust it and know that indeed you are safe, you're monitored, you're connected. All has purpose. I think I'm going to skip this because we have so much to talk about. So again, in this first evolution of triad healing, so understanding that where most people are is in their soul matrix connection. That fourth, fifth, and sixth layer is starting to come in. So these are some tools, some things to remember as you're going through this. Stay in the now moment. Know that consciousness cannot be mind controlled. You can only connect to God consciousness in the now. Work to maintain that observer and witness within you. That means you watch and you observe without judgment. as you start to understand the mechanics, as what I was speaking about, that first triad, the superconscious, subconscious, and conscious mind, that's your first, second, and third chakra. Understand how those work, because those are the ones that are getting manipulated. And it's important to note that most of the mind control technology is operating within a certain parameter of hertz. So it's like when they're using hertz within a certain electromagnetic field spectrum, it's hitting the first, second, and third layers. So once you learn how to get, when they talk about 3D mind control, that's what they mean. The mind control technology is being used within those parameters because the beings actually don't understand consciousness. They can't manipulate consciousness. We become an anomaly when we start to be in our consciousness. They don't know what to do with us anymore. Again, making sure that you transform and resolve all fear and emotional conflict, because again, fear is how we're controlled. And again, I love this acronym, that fear is false evidence appearing real. So the power of being out of your mind and in sensory feeling, also knowing the ascension cycle, what's happening to us, is we're reprogramming how we've been processing our reality. And that has been in a linear sequence, understanding that the first 3 layers of intelligence, that triad of the personality, it processes linearly, like a linear algorithm. That's literally like a computer. It's processing binary code in a linear fashion. Most of us in this room, as Indigos and Starseeds, can attest, we have a hard time dealing with linear because we actually process circular. And that's actually the nature of consciousness, the nature of our universe. It's spiral. When we actually access our consciousness beyond the linear, point A to point B, which is what the 3D body does, and we start to get into the higher intelligence of these bodies that are actually activating, we go into spiral consciousness. And that means we can access any point in time in the spiral that is existing simultaneously. And that's how we transcend these lower patterns that have happened in the histories of humankind. So again, commit and apply your will to serving your God purpose. And I truly do suggest that commit to some sort of practice that really helps you connect, whether it's meditation, connection, or clearing. And again, live by the law of love or the law of one. And if you simply don't know what to do, be the will to good, the will to God, and that means service to others. You will find yourself accelerating, even when you're feeling confused, like, what do I do next? Just wake up in the morning and say, beloved God, beloved guides, just guide me to be the will to God. How am I best to be of service today? Now, briefly, I'm just going to go over this because I'd like to, if we have time, maybe answer some questions and have some interaction, if you guys are into that. But the third triad of intelligence, again, is when we start getting into the monad. And the monad is the 7th, 8th, and 9th level. So according to them, they call this is when we start getting galactivated. That's when many of us, when we start reaching these spiritual bodies and they start to become a part of our consciousness here, we start to be aware of vortices, we become grid workers. This is kind of the advanced light worker starseed. We start getting downloads of technology like live stream and things like this. You know, it's certain 0-point technologies start coming in, schematics start coming in. You're actually connecting to the cosmic mind. You may think it's coming from you, but it's really not. And so this is when holographic architecture, the consciousness fields, start to become an experience for you. And as well, understanding that the 7th dimension, the planetary field of the 7th dimension, is the last of the particle solar plane of this planet, and it's where the actual logos of our planet exists. So it's like understanding our planet has a blueprint. Our planet, from the guardian perspective, happens to be feminine in principle. And the 7th dimension, according to the reptilian invasion that I've been speaking to you about, is where the reptilians hijacked the group mind of our planet, otherwise known as the logos. So when they say hijacked or interference, that's what they mean, is that beings came into the logos of our planet and started messing with it. And one of the things they put there was crucifixion theology and the lies around religion. This is why the collective consciousness has this strange love-hate relationship with religion, because we can feel certain truths in there, and we want to connect to it, and we want to belong to a group, for God's sakes, because we forgot who we are. We know we're one big happy family, and yet we start to go down that path, and we're persecuted, ostracized, crucified. This is a program. They